Here's the new villain. We beat the new villain. We move on. Here's the new villain. We beat the new villain. We move on. Here's the new villain. We beat the new villain. We move on. Here's the new villain. We beat the new villain. We move on. Here's the
Run, 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 run. Welcome to Podages, your friendly 8-legged dog-based companion through the 2020 Digimon Adventure reboot. This week, we're kind of discussing episode 59, Bolt Hirako Kawatarimon.
Among other things.
Yeah, among other things. I'm Jeff, and I'm not sure I want to be the biggest streamer anymore.
Our apologies to Wadakoji.
Yeah.
I'm Aster, and I'm doing. How are you all doing? I'm not doing.
I'm Touya, and I'm activating cancel culture.
Oh no.
We're not here to talk about the episode. We're here to talk about the episode, but we're not here to talk about the episode.
Yes. So normally this is the part of the podcast where I ask you guys how you've been enjoying Adventure 2020 since you were last on, but we'll eventually get to the Adventure 2020 episode of the week. But I think the main thing we're all here for is to process the news and events that have happened in the past week. So August 1st happened, Odaiba Day, a special day in Digimon fandom. There was DigiFes 2021, which was Digimon Tamers themed for the 20th anniversary. And there were a couple bits of really exciting news, which we'll get to. But before we get to the good news, I think we have to start off with the bad news with the giant Tamers. I don't remember the name of Vikalaramon in the room, giant elephant in the room. And I don't even know where to begin. If you're listening to this, you've probably seen the stuff on social media. On Twitter, it was trending. I hope it's not trending anymore by the time you're listening to this.
We should just read out our favorite tweets.
I'm just going to summarize it in brief, which is that the real enemy is political correctness, and political correctness is now activating cancel culture is an actual line said verbatim. I am not joking. It is not a sick joke. A lot of people asked me, are you being figurative about this? I am not. That is an actual line.
People thought this was a fake fan sub until they turned the audio on.
Yeah, until turn the audio on, and it's literally the English loanwords political correctness and
cancel culture.
Cancel culture.
I don't even want to say it.
Jeff, I grew up as a pastor's kid. I endured terrible skits about moral values every Sunday of my life. I watched Saturday Night Live skits on the weekends. And I suffered through Young Hunters. This was the worst writing I have ever seen.
Like, if you're gonna put in alt-right propaganda, at least be subtle about it. I heard apparently there's even alt-writers who agree but are criticizing how cringe it was because of how cringe it is.
Oh, it's not well written. No, this is no masterpiece.
Okay, so that's a topic that I'm kind of curious about because I'm not too familiar with. Well, I guess we should explain what this thing was. If people maybe seen screenshots and don't know what it was a live reading of a script, basically a audio drama, but like not recorded and released as a CD or anything, just live read on stage at DigiFes.
That he wrote a script and he gave it to a script that's supposed to be kind of a distant sequel to Tamers. I mean, there's like minutiae about like the drama CD and like other like canon things, but like just all you have to know is that it's like a distant sequel to Tamers, and they gave it to all the voice actors to read.
Yeah, they had the actual actors doing this.
Yes, the original actors from Digimon Tamers.
Which made it worse.
They actually had Orikawa Humiko read the line, political correctness is activating cancel culture on...
Yeah, so I went back and read the English translation of the transcript of the 2018 Tamers drama CD, which we'll have a link to that in the show notes. But I'm just not familiar enough with drama CDs because even that I was like, this is kind of hokey, but like I guess that's just kind of the style of drama CDs maybe. But this was the 2021 was even more.
I think everyone's kind of overplaying the relevance of the drama CD in this case because it's canonically relevant, but only tangentially. And even like us who are following, like the only reason why it's so important is because like the guy himself kept going on about how you have to know about it to know what's going on, but like it doesn't really matter. The point is that like, it doesn't really change what happened, you know? So I think people are just kind of upplaying how important it is, because even, like, on his blog, and we'll talk about the blog in a bit, but even on his blog, he was saying that, like, his major, like, awakening or whatever happened in, like, 2019. So I honestly would not, like, think too hard about the drama CD's relevance in this.
Oh yeah, I don't think drama CD is super relevant. I was just mentioning
Yeah.
the touch point that like maybe live readings like this are more hokey than we're used to with like anime or things
No,
that are...
we've had a few of these before. You know, like,
Yeah.
here's the thing is, like, the only reason nobody cared about the ones we've had before is because people weren't really recording them. There's apparently one from, like, 2003, which was directed by, like, Kakuto himself, and, like, nobody cares because nobody recorded it. So these are normally not supposed to be big deals.
Yeah, but in the internet age, everything is written in stone.
Right.
Which, kind of ironic that they seem to have not figured that out in Digimon.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, I brought up the blog. And I mean, I think this is actually enough to be concerned about without context. But in case you were entertaining any kind of doubt that, like, maybe he's just doesn't know the implications of what he written, like, no, he wrote, like, a huge thing about, like, how he started getting really into this alt-right YouTuber. And I looked into, like, the stuff that this guy posted. It's like the complete New World Order, 9/11 truther, like like literally every major crackpot conspiracy theory, and he called him a reasonable person. So you already see how deep this is going.
And this guy was banned from YouTube for spreading misinformation, right?
Yes, and like he was talking about, like, the Great Reset, like, World Economic Forum theory, which literally nobody cares about unless you're a conspiracy theorist. If you look this up at all, literally, like, the first 5 pages on your, like, it will, like, all be conspiracy theory stuff. Like, actually, like, there's no doubt he has gone down the deep end. This is, like, not up for argument. Like, this is not an ambiguous case of maybe it's cultural. No, he clearly knows English, and he's praising all of these people for being reputable, like, honest news sources that are being suppressed by, like, you know, like, the evil media. I think the, like, punchline was when he started accusing, like, a Japanese government agency that doesn't actually exist yet for leaking information. It's not supposed to exist until next month, but apparently it's responsible for leaking all this, like, Japanese social media information. What the heck? And it's like totally, like, everything you could, like, possibly imagine. And he actually said, like, yep, I plan to include all of this in my fiction from now on. I'm going to reflect, like, all this because I have lost complete faith in all of society, and this is what I'm going to do from now on.
That's the really concerning part. Like, the fact that he says he is not only buying into these theories, but he wants to work them into his fiction.
This is not where you invoke death of the author. He literally said, I'm going to be using this as my propaganda outlet from now on.
And he writes for children. Like,
well, he wrote for children, and we're hoping he's not writing for children anymore.
Yeah, that's the concern.
Yeah, and like you mentioned that he's, like, lost faith in society, but I mean, to be even more explicit, like, I mean, I could say I've lost faith in society after the way people reacted to COVID, but he's explicitly gone on rants about, you know, like, losing faith in all scientific evidence.
Yeah, he says he does not trust scientists
Because of COVID. That, like, it's...
I mean, he compared the vaccine to Devilman Lady.
His own work, because...
His own work! The vaccine was actually a secret ploy by the government to turn people into devil beasts.
Sign me up, sure. Yeah, give me that needle. Come on, over here, now. We'll Digital Devil Saga this all up.
Which I may remind you was not in the original manga.
I feel like I've occasionally made connections like, oh, this is like that thing that happened in a fictional piece of media, but like it's a thing he himself wrote, and he's using it to write off a vaccine that saved millions of lives.
Now, Aster, you said that this started in, like, 2019, right?
He said so.
But I thought I said before this that, like, I'm caught up to Digimon Adventure 2020. I'm not caught up to whatever Konaka's smoking right now. So, like, in one of his blog posts, he mentions that he started looking into the 9/11 truther stuff back at, like, 2010, right?
Yeah.
But it's only in the last 2 years that he's gone this far into the deep end.
Yeah. I think that basically the point is that he already was entertaining this kind of thing from back then. And I've heard that apparently his work Armitage 3 has a message that feminists are the problem. So it's kind of like why everyone has been constantly saying it's not surprising somehow, even though it's disappointing, because you kind of have the feeling that he was receptive to this kind of thing before, but then 2019, by his claim, seems to be when it just went to hell.
Yeah, like I can see how it kind of fits with his, like, kind of like questioning everything attitude.
I think it's both reasonable to say that Tamer seems to have been made 20 years ago before he went off the deep end, so you shouldn't worry too much about like it actually secretly having alt-right propaganda, because he even said like back then I thought very differently. So he even personally said that he quote regrets whatever he wrote back then. But at the same time, also start thinking that maybe you should be a little more critical about the kind of sentiment that's been going in there. I think those are both ideas that can coexist.
I mean, I have some hope that if he was a very different person back then, that he could be a very different person in the future.
Well, let's not talk about that, because that's not the important discussion here. We're not really talking about him, I guess, as much as what he's putting in his fiction.
But yeah, in terms of Tamers, also the important thing is to consider is that like he's even been honest in his blog posts revisiting Tamers that like so many ideas that people credit to him weren't his ideas, and most of the things that people love the most about Tamers weren't his ideas. So
yeah, he's responsible for like a quarter of the series content.
Like a lot of Adventure in Zero 2 staff were returning, and they were responsible for a lot of it.
Yeah, like the Impmon arc is like entirely not his idea. And
the really ironic part, Yamaki's characterization to not make him a straightforward villain was not his idea, and yet he decided to pick Yamaki as his alt-right mouthpiece.
So my perception of that is that like, so it was another writer that tried to like soften Yamaki into being.
He made him like more interesting as a character. It was actually Mayakawa, who was one of the lead writers for Zero 2, decided to make like kind of start like all that part where he starts kind of losing a grip on himself and he kind of humanizes him a bit.
But then I kind of got the impression that after post Tamers, he started to self-identify with Yamaki more and more, to the point where
I guess so.
He's literally made that his Twitter handle.
It's really weird.
And dragged him back to the first half characterization.
Yeah. Unironically, without realizing it, but...
Yeah. And it gloated about it. It's so nice to see the high-tension Yamaki after so long, he says.
Yeah. One of the reasons it's important to bring up all of this extra baggage of the blog and stuff is that I think you can have a reading of the live reading itself that tries to be generous of it, because it's like, it cuts off before it concludes things, and basically in the live reading, like the Yamaki character runs in and like is ranting and raving about cancel culture and political correctness, and everyone kind of writes him off as like, oh, what's this crazy guy doing? And then it turns out that is the actual literal villain that attacks them.
Yeah. So like I think the part like you can't really be generous about this part. Okay, the cancel culture thing, maybe. Political correctness is the real enemy. Not even like too strict, too restrictive, or difficult to work with. No, it's your real enemy. Like, not being a decent person is apparently a problem. Like, and then on top of that, like, the thing is, you're gonna argue, well, they made Yamaki look crazy and all that, but like, as many people have pointed out, this is literally alt-right recruitment, just literally the method of alt-right recruitment. Yeah, you probably think I'm crazy, but I've been right the whole time, and then he basically recruited all the Tamers into the alt-right ideology of defeating cancel culture.
Yeah, he's proven right in the end, so...
Yes, he's proven right! You think I'm crazy, but I've seen the truth.
See, it reminds me of a creator that I kind of put in a very similar place in my mind, which is David Lynch and Twin Peaks. And David Lynch is another creator who like is kind of obsessed with the weird in a way that like can be pretty problematic at times when you actually like dig into what he's doing and who he's depicting and how he's depicting them.
Yes.
And in Twin Peaks: The Return, which was 28 years later, or 27, anyway, it like originally aired in 1990, and then The Return came back almost 30 years later, and one of the characters from the original season in Twin Peaks: The Return has become an alt-right radio host, and they're depicted as being like, it's a negative thing, like they're clearly not redeemed or like considered to be in the right. And just seeing this and seeing this person end up being, oh no, they're correct in the end, it's like, oh my god, like
like the thing that I want people to stop saying is because he's Japanese, he probably doesn't know, or he must have a different perspective. No. He got all this from reading British and Canadian YouTubers.
He's very engaged in international media.
Not only is he engaged in international media, if you have read his blog, you'll notice he doesn't use Japanese corruptions of English words. Like he writes the word event like evento, not ibento, because he's so in touch with English, he wants to spell it correctly, the English way.
And he's always been a little bit of like a Westaboo. I mean,
for a lack of a better way to put it.
That comes part and parcel with like being a Cthulhu mythos writer.
Yeah. Like he is is extremely like in touch with like Western stuff. I mean, the fact that that's the thing. So a lot of people have been asking, how come this got approved? This is the single most question. How the hell did someone approve this?
Yeah.
The thing is, the Japanese fan base had almost no reaction to this. They were just a little confused as to what the hell was going on. In fact, one person, their biggest emotion was actually disappointment that there's probably no sequel to this too. So the thing is that the words political correctness and cancel culture are very difficult to say in Japanese. Like even political correctness, like if they do bring it up at all, it's usually shortened to porikore. And they probably had no idea what was going on, and they didn't really care because it's just like things are happening and I'm not going to think about it too hard. And, you know, even if they do kind of know, they may only vaguely know, but they think like, oh, Konaka's just being so like politically controversial again. He does this all the time. And the thing is, like, yeah, they don't know these words the way we do. Like, we see this because we're English speakers, and we see this like happening like clockwork. We've seen this as an alt-right recruitment tactic. We've seen this all the time. It's like, oh my god, he's literally just like, this is awful. Like, we see this for the stupidity it is, but like, you know, when you've never had any encounter with these words or anything like that before, you probably have no idea. And so the thing is, actually, conversely, the fact he knows these words and is capable of using it this way is disturbing, because in order to get to this point, you have to fall down really deep into the hole to get to this point at all if you're not natively familiar with this language. So it's like, do not even bring up like maybe he doesn't know because he's Japanese. He knows exactly what he was doing.
This does bring up something interesting, that the political correctness issue right now doesn't actually gloss that well for the Japanese audience. It's like not compatible with the current discourse. It would be like trying to talk about, I don't know, the Senkaku Islands debate or something in English speaking media. Like, it's not part of the regular conversation, so it doesn't register.
I also really want people to stop saying, well, this is only natural to expect for Japanese people, because I follow a lot of Digimon staff or using like, or at least like casually, and a lot of them are very, very like viciously critical of the Japanese government for not handling the vaccine well, and like in general just like fighting against misinformation and all that. Just because these ideas may be more common or more popular or less seen as a problem in Japan does not mean that like we should just accept that, like, okay, well, clearly it's more normalized, so that we should just expect this to be normal, because clearly there are quite a lot of people who don't think that's normal, especially because nowadays resistance to vaccination programs is going down nowadays, because like now people are seeing people dying. And it's like, understand that you shouldn't just like act like, okay, well, it's just going to be that way, because it's disturbing.
Yeah, and like, it's like the fact that people didn't react to these words does not mean that the Japanese audience is just less political. It's these specific words that trigger. There's a lot of historical baggage in particular that we are familiar with that a Japanese audience isn't familiar with, but that Konaka's clearly referencing, and like, it's a dog whistle, and it's a dog whistle that I don't want to call attention to it, but it has worked. Like, there are people out there who are celebrating what he's done, and they're the worst type of people.
He actually wrote on his blog, like, this is not as big of a problem in Japanese society yet. So he basically like stated, like, I'm bringing this in that you guys don't know about it yet, but guess what's gonna happen from like all this the Western culture is like, he was literally relying on the fact that it wasn't as well known in Japan.
Yeah, I ran this by one of my friends who's fluent in Japanese and watches a lot of Japanese media, and his take was that like, it's not like this kind of discourse is completely absent in Japanese media and society, but just like these words in particular aren't the ones that they use to discuss it.
Like, I've actually seen like very well written threads on like why Trump got that banned from Twitter, and yeah, it explained like, because of like his words were inflammatory and incited people to potential violence, therefore it's against the guidelines. Like, it uses like, it's got all the same concepts, and it explains like, this isn't censorship, this is specifically, we are trying to, we are talking about a violation of the rules and preventing more violence, but it never used any of these words.
Yeah. I've also like been hearing through the grapevine about Konaka's blog and the things that he's been slipping in there for a while, but did not realize that like the most recent post?
Yes.
The one like tied into the live reading, like,
yes,
has just like, feels like an info dump of all of his worst ideas in one place. And it's like, it makes me wonder if these are ideas that he couldn't get into the script itself, because they were too
Yeah,
extreme.
I think there was like one or two things like mentioned in the blog that were going to be in there, and like I didn't see it there for some reason, and I'm like wondering if like I got edited because he was talking about all the restrictions, and not just because not necessarily because of content, but he was talking about like a lot of things he couldn't do because they were doing pandemic restrictions. He had such a passive aggressive tone during it too, talking about like because like talking about like it's fashionable to do social distancing and not because there's an actual pandemic.
Oh yeah, he was describing like how he wanted the actors to be like moving around and standing and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And like, oh yeah, we can't do that because of it's fashionable to.
Yeah, it's like it was awful, but like it seems like there were definitely a lot of things he couldn't do. So I do almost wonder if there really was a worse version that got edited down.
Yeah, like this is the filtered version.
Like, how did they let this through? Well, they didn't let a lot of other things through.
What's the director's cut gonna be?
Oh god. Or maybe they cut things out not knowing that they were actually doing us a service. Like they just cut it for time or something and just didn't realize what they were sparing.
It is strange to me that he must have actually anticipated that this kind of thing would be recorded and re-uploaded to the internet, because why else would you be proud of the fact that you are like on the vanguard of talking about political correctness, and that like people would look back and see you talking about it before it was ever an issue in Japan.
He's very aware of his overseas, so I'm sure he knew this was going to happen, and he's probably going to make it a talking point about how the Westerners are part of the see, this is exactly what I was warning about. Like,
yeah, like I'm so scared that there's no way he actually learns from this experience.
Well, I don't expect anything from him anymore.
Yeah, like the fandom reacting negatively to this just reinforces the opinions it thinks that it's true, and it's
as many people have pointed out, this is designed to make it to be like a trap.
Yeah.
This is designed to be a way that there's literally no way out of it.
It's a tautological trap.
It's a please cancel me sign.
The only thing you can do is just try and prevent other people from getting caught up in it, and that's all you can do.
Yeah, it's disappointing. It's upsetting. It's a lot of things.
It's a lot of things. There's a lot to handle. There's a lot to think about. And, there's been the people who have come kind of seeing this coming for a while, but even then, somehow it still managed to disappoint us anyway because of how blatant it was.
I came here to have fun with my friends. Then he rolled all this out.
And then there's the people who just were caught completely unawares today, which I don't know which side I feel worse for.
I miss the good old-fashioned ban on politics.
I mean, like I've in the past couple of years, I think there was a particularly notable book about cancel culture going too far that I think came out in 2015, and since then I've seen plenty of liberal-leaning people who, even though they're progressively liberal, read books like that and then they're like, you know what, maybe cancel culture has gone too far, and I think there are examples of it going too far, but like making them the literal villain and like all this other conspiratorial nonsense behind it is just yeah.
The other thing is, when you do want to criticize cancel culture, because of how much alt-right people have watered down that word, a lot of people who want to criticize it have stopped using that. They're usually more likely to use witch hunt or just something that kind of is less trendy, but it describes what the problem is.
Although now witch hunt is very loaded thanks to certain political figures who are no longer in office.
Point is, they're more likely to describe it for what it is, which is going overboard, doxing or whatever the actual method used was, or just generally speaking, there's been an increased avoidance of the term cancel culture these days, unless you are one of these people using it cheerfully.
Yeah. There's a pretty good episode of You're Wrong About, a podcast that the premise of the episode that I'll link to in the show notes is basically that like cancel culture does not exist. Like cancel culture as a unified cultural thing just doesn't, it's not a thing.
I mean, for me, I don't like relying on buzzwords, especially when they're very poorly defined. So I'm a very say it as it is. So not only say it as it is, but be properly descriptive. So say what the problem is. Is it what way is it going? Because there's definitely problems with things. That's the part that's insidious about this, because it's disguised as genuine commentary, but it's not.
Yeah, for a while I thought that the problem with quote unquote cancel culture, what people call cancel culture, is that it's mob mentality plus trying to do some good for the world.
Right.
And the problem is the mob mentality, but using that as an excuse to complain that people are trying to do good in the world, oh my god, and the term political correctness,
using political correctness as the ultimate enemy. Okay, just put all the stuff about cancel culture. Please evaluate what it takes to say that political correctness is the ultimate enemy of everything. Not a problem or overly restrictive or just like looming over all of our heads. I don't know, whatever, but the ultimate enemy, the true enemy, really.
It's also just not a correct assessment of the state of the internet today. Like, if you,
It's
in
not.
order to be able to say that so like beyond just using the words political correctness and cancer culture, in the stage play or the drama, what are we calling this now?
Whatever, just go on.
Yamaki says that information is being censored and only one narrative is being allowed, a single uniform narrative. And like, okay, in order to believe that, you have to be frequenting basically only one website, because I have conflicting viewpoints thrown at me every single day by this stupid feature on Twitter called it was the recommended tweets and categories that I can't turn off for some reason. It'll turn itself back on if you find a way to turn it off. And then on other websites, like 4chan still exists, okay? It's actually a very different place than it was back in like 2007.
There was a tweet the other day where like if you need information on something, just like put a wrong fact about it on Twitter and everyone will come correct you. How are you kidding? The internet is one of the most chaotic places imaginable, man.
The subreddits, the different boards, the like 4chan derivatives, like 7chan, and I think Infinity Chan is dead now. I hope it is. The internet, yeah, there's a lack of like forums today. Forums definitely need to be coming back. I'm working on that. But
This is Toya's soapbox about forums.
yes. The actual diversity of viewpoints is still here, and the evidence for that is how angry everybody is all the time. People would not be constantly calling each other out and having fights on the internet if there were not divergent viewpoints. Like Metal Gear Solid 2 is a good critique of what eventually happened to the internet, with people deliberately trying to isolate themselves into places where only their personal truth is validated, except for the part where like they have actually failed in that. This is a critique of something that isn't happening.
Yeah.
Well, it's well, I want to say it's not happening, but there are tons. He has picked up on a strain of thought that a lot of people have, and they all agree on this imaginary boogeyman. And just the idea that only one line of thought is allowed, it makes no sense.
It's incredible because the one of the things that Tamers is so praised about is that it's about like how life isn't that clear cut, and then here he is just like pinning everything on the shadowy cartoon villains, like like the actual stereotype of the Saturday morning cartoon show.
I mean, this is a thing with cosmic horror writers that like allegedly they are very deep and pondering a universe that is absolutely ignorant of our existence and just does not care about our ethics or morality. But when you boil a lot of them down, there are black and white themes running throughout them.
I mean, Tamers is a lot more straightforward of a series than people really want to admit, you know?
Yeah.
One thing I've been torn about today, which I guess we haven't explained like when we're recording this, because we're recording this on day 0 of
Yes.
the outbreak.
The day it broke out.
Oh, it's a wonderful hell to observe.
Yes. This is literally the same day everyone found out.
Yeah, we had this episode in the works for, I mean, I invited Aster and Touya on weeks ago when it was like, oh, this is going to be the episode that we record after DigiFes. That'll be fun to talk about DigiFes news.
I came here to have a good time.
Well, okay, to be fair, I did actually write in the chat, I'm very fear out of DigiFest right now, but
Right.
yeah, it sounds fun.
Yeah, like we all thought that there was a concern with Konaka being involved with the Tamers thing, but did not. I mean, I did not expect it to be so explicit in the thing itself. And then even in the days, but like after it happened on Sunday, like I didn't expect the reaction once there was a translation and screenshots and stuff to be so explosive and to reach so many people who aren't like usually that interested in Digimon stuff. Like it's gone so much bigger than I expected.
I thought it was possible. I imagined like Kotaku or something would be talking about it.
Because I thought this was like it's a stage show. Like it's like I thought this was not going to break out, but you know, I guess when somebody is legitimately saying political correctness is activating cancel culture, kind of hard for it to not get out.
Pretty cringe, bro.
Yeah. But yeah, like over the course of today, it's been hard to focus on work and do things. And one thing I've been really torn about is like, is this something that shouldn't be joked about? Is it something that should be joked about? Like, is trying to be too serious about it, like giving it more weight and making it into more of a scary boogeyman? And, you know, I was like, should I post a picture of Taichi and Yamato screaming at Omegamon while he's like plunging the sword into Diamoramon, saying political correctness and cancel culture are a dog whistle for the alt-right? And like... I don't know. I don't know whether it's good to be joking about this or to be treating it really seriously. I just don't even know.
Yeah.
Laugh so you do not cry.
Yeah.
I had to get through a job interview not thinking about this. That was impossible.
I'm sorry.
At least you got through it.
My favorite tweet from day zero is Digimon Adventure gets like 20 movies and a whole ass reboot series while Tamers gets its cast to read a right-wing Facebook boomer rant on stage.
It's like you can't, you don't think it could get worse, but it gets worse.
Yeah, I am not to center this too much on Konaka the person, but like I am hopeful for people who are in the position that he is in to learn and eventually realize what kind of rabbit hole they've gone down.
Yeah.
I don't know how to help that happen, but
Yeah.
Everybody who's close to like somebody who went down the rabbit hole is just like feeling awful right now because they recognize this so well. That's the thing. Like you're thinking, oh, everybody's overreacting. It's like, no, we've seen this. Like this is a very well-known pattern.
Yeah.
That happens so many times, and we've seen it happen to people we know. I've had it happen to someone I know. I watched it happen in real time. It's horrifying.
I watched the same thing happen some, 5 years ago now? 6? I don't know, but the worst thing that you can do as someone close to a person like that is nothing. I was very concerned about losing the friendship of this person by confronting them about the rabbit hole they were going down, which was in this case, this was Gamergate, actually. I watched their slow progression from Gamergate into full-on Trumpism eventually. And like, I can only hope that Konaka has friends or family that care about him and will say, hey, I'm kind of concerned by some of the things you've been saying. Can we talk about this?
Yeah.
And like the goal should never be in these discussions, like canceling him is what he wants because it actually amplifies his voice when there's a backlash. The goal should be to bring him back to reality. And the only ones that can do that are sadly not his fans. It's the people close to him that he already trusts.
I don't really care, or like, I have no interest in attacking him. This is the funny thing. Like, everyone was like, you're trying to cancel him because there was a warning that his words had alt-right points in it. We weren't talking about him, man.
yeah, like it's not about vilifying the person. Like this.
I bring up the blog because it shows that there's a worse context behind it.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to bring up the blog because you need to understand. Like I'm bringing up the blog because I want to say there's more where this comes from. But I'm not trying to bring it up in the sense that like, okay, now I really want to set the mob on you. Fist mob on him, you know?
I mean, even when I bring up the blog and his words, it's like these are words and actions. Words and actions are different from a person. Like, this is not really dealing with racism, but as an example, if someone says something racist, you call out the racist behavior, and that's different from like saying the person is a racist. Like, a person can be redeemed and transform and then like get over the actions and the words. And like, so it's none of this is like meant to be a personal attack on his character or anything. It's just these are his actions. We're critiquing the actions. Actions can be redeemed. Beelzemon, the live reading included jury accepting Impmon's apology.
Like, again, I bring up the blog because he outright stated this is what he wanted to do. This was not ambiguous. He said he intended to do this. So, I mean, this is not ambiguous.
He said he intends to keep doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, he just tweeted, I'm going to write my view for overseas fans in 9/8 or later.
Oh, wonderful. Can we keep this podcast going that long?
Oh, no. Oh, my God.
Turn on the live stream, Jeff. Turn on the live stream. Hit the button.
That's the most hell live stream. Wait, what does that mean? In 9/8? August 9th?
August 9th, I believe. I hope. I hope
Oh, God.
that means that, and not September 8th, which would hint at something else.
So I know that he's like, he's a 9/11 truther. He believes in great replacement theory. Is he one of the microchips are in the vaccines people?
He hasn't mentioned that one yet.
Okay.
He's more on the RNA mutation.
All right.
Sorry.
The microchip one is really stupid because, yeah, we're already being tracked. That was publicly admitted like a decade ago when the Snowden leaks happened, and it's through your smartphone, not through a microchip.
Oh, that reminds me that like the thing that makes me sad about all this like radicalization, which it seems happened through YouTube at least partially, considering he like has cited, like alt-right YouTubers and like the kind of villain that like Serial Experiments Lane and Digimon Tamers like in talking about the future of technology and stuff, like the YouTube algorithm radicalizing people is the kind of thing that like is the true horrors of the internet that we have in society today. And instead of it being reflected through his writing, it's it's become his writing. Like,
There are Lane fans who said he became exactly what he warned against.
That's where the filter bubbles are actually happening. These algorithmic systems that keep, you know what? I can't believe I'm complimenting the Hellbird site, but good on Twitter for actually showing me things I don't like. On YouTube, it just keeps showing stuff that reinforces more clicking. Anything similar to what you've already watched.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, so, well, should we get to the good news, the potentially good news out of DigiFes?
Well, I don't know, because he's been hinting at the fact that there's more coming and he's been working on something.
Yeah.
So I can't even say I'm straightforward happy about the new series as I'd like to be. If they reveal the writer as someone else, I will completely throw out caution out to the wind and celebrate. But otherwise, I cannot bring myself to be emotionally attached to it until I know who the writer is.
Yeah.
I want to be excited for this series.
Because I just want you to remind you that ghost stories are a specialty of his. He built his career on these.
Yeah.
I want to be excited for this.
Okay, wait. So, people aren't aware of the news we're referring to. The new Digimon anime series airing in the fall, Digimon Ghost Game, that they have not revealed the staff of yet. The character designs they were not explicit, but seem to be designed by Yabuno Sensei of the V-Tamer manga. But yeah, Konaka's been hinting at being involved in something.
And also, wouldn't it be great to say, yeah, we're getting all your beloved creators back?
What if they haven't announced the creators yet because they're still deciding whether or not to hire him on it?
I mean, I hope they're not still writing the show 2 months before it comes out.
Well, don't they usually write it as they go? That's not the issue.
Sorry, I mean, like, I hope they have not yet to have started writing it.
Okay, yeah.
They should be actively writing it now, but I hope they have started.
No, the classic anime way of doing things is that nothing about the episode is done until about 5 minutes before it has to air.
True. Okay, so I think there are two possibilities. Konaka's involved, in which I think it's clear what our apprehension is. I think we should at least proceed for now, assuming he's not. Or like, how do we feel if he's not?
If he's not, okay, I'm happy about the inclination to break trends.
Oh yeah, I'm very interested.
I'm happy about the idea of getting a well-respected artist, fandom-wise, but also one who clearly makes fresh and new designs. And I like in general, I just like the idea of being, that logo job is really bad though. Actually, I have another thing to say. I'm sorry, Jeff, I'm going to rant about this.
Oh, this is going to be great.
When the leaks came out, and they were leaks at the time, they weren't actually firmly revealed, the behavior of the fan base was miserable. Why were all the news outlets acting like it was confirmed already? Okay, you got lucky. It was real this time. You know how easy it is going to be for somebody to prank you like this next time. Because Precure fanbase goes through this rodeo so many times. So, like, everybody gets strung along by a fake leak. Okay, guys, if you don't know that is for sure that is true, say it. It's very important because people need to know the difference between what's sourced and what's not sourced. Okay, even with like leaks that turn out to be true, usually there's a source. Like, I don't know, VJump, website data lock or whatever. Okay, this time we didn't know. So you should say you don't know that. Like, this is, I mean, I'm just thinking, like, you better count your blessings that this was real, actually. Because, like, I can only imagine how pissed off people would have been if this had been fake, after, like, so many hopes getting strung along.
There were warning signs that it could be fake.
Yeah, there were, like, a lot of really legitimate warning signs. Like, Precure fanbase goes through this all the time.
Yeah, I kind of have an even more extreme opinion, which is like, I saw a couple different postings of the news that were explicit in the text of the article that it was unconfirmed, and that, like, mentioned all the caveats that, like, usually there are sources and this has no sources. But I don't know what the statistics are, but a lot of people see the title and don't read the text of an article.
Yeah.
And, like, I've recently been trying to get involved in a local Digimon TCG community in my area, and seeing people who are Digimon fans there, but who aren't like the most active Digimon fans who are a part of the community, seeing the kind of like secondhand rumors they talk about that are just like a sensationalist YouTube title that's taken out of context, and the videos themselves aren't sensationalist, but the title is, and they think like, oh, Adventure 2020 has introduced secondary partners for all the kids. Every Digimon character has 2 partners now. It's like, no, that's not a thing. But there was a headline that implied that, and now people think it's real. And so, yeah, I think there's also a layer of irresponsibility to, like, if tucking in that caveat in the article itself. But
like, you guys really gotta, like, I'm talking to all the journalists who are covering this, like, you guys really, if you want to build a reputation of trustworthiness and, like, checking your sources, you guys got to be more careful about this. I'm begging you.
I think it's hopeless though, because I think people who gambled, they they were correct this time, so now they're gonna be duped.
Be even more reckless. Yeah, they're going to be even more reckless next time.
Yeah.
So it's like,
I've worked as a journalist before. It's a losing battle against the people used to complain about using cute cat videos as news, and now I guess that's fallen by the wayside because everything has gone hard in on clickbait. But the advertising revenue, the actual keeping your lights running and paying your employees is largely funded by headlines that people click, spend maybe 5 seconds glancing at, and then sharing, because in that 5 seconds they see an ad and it makes an impression.
I'm also bummed. The angle that I was bummed about with these leaks is that, like, when leaks come out from a physical magazine, it's like, I mean, I've worked in 2 different industries that have had problems with leaks, so I have like a personal frustration with leaks in general. But at least when it comes from a physical magazine, it's like the thing's been printed. There are like tons of people in the supply chain, and then like tons of. But like when something like this that wasn't a physical printing, and it's like it just makes me sad to think like who involved decided they wanted to like tarnish or like ruin the experience for people by getting out early. Like,
I'm disturbed actually. Like, who leaked this?
Yeah.
I still don't know.
I really wonder if it was not like, we don't normally distinguish on these, but there's a difference between something being leaked by an inside employee or somebody that is somewhere along the supply chain or distribution line that could have gotten a hold of this incidentally, and then a hack where somebody actually found the image embedded in a website element somewhere but disabled, which seems more like what this would have been. Because usually you would get this from, like, I don't know, some anime reporting website would say a source provided this, or in this case, I think, was Wikimon the original poster of this image?
No,
so.
the first person I saw was actually a fan artist. I think the first person posting was actually a Chinese forum.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I know what fan artists you're talking about, but I think, yeah, they weren't, the forum was before that. And yeah, like, I'm just bummed thinking about, like, if it was an employee, like, what kind of, like, that usually only happens because they're disgruntled and they want to, like, you know, like, prove a point or something.
Or also, like, it was only 1 day before. Like, there's not much to gain or lose from this.
Yeah.
That's why I think it was a hack.
Like, it would be one thing if it would be, like, 2 weeks or something. 1 day before.
Yeah.
I mean, back in the old days of Vanguard, I did get ahead of Bushiroad on announcing one of the world championships. It might have been 2013, or maybe it was Springfest one year. I actually found the page on the website active before they formally announced it and got the jump on them, which felt nice.
Yeah, that's how a lot of things get leaked, just because, like, not locking their data enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, like, and there's also, like, the thing about, like, how sometimes some, quote, leaks, unquote, are actually planned. But in this case, it's, like, 1 day before.
Actually, let me tell you about the stupidest leak that never happened. When I was going through the PDFs hosted on the official Vanguard website, Vanguard does this thing every so often where Digimon does this too. They reveal a card, they show you the art, but not the effect. It's like covered up or obscured or has a mosaic or something. And in this case, they had like a big secret box on it that just said secret. And I found out in the PDFs that actually the full card existed. They were multi-layered PDFs, and you could open them up in Photoshop and open the individual pages and find the card. And so, like, some of the later cards leaked, after which they cracked down on that. I think I tweeted a video of the process of just clicking and dragging the card out of from behind its box. But actually, going back like a year before that, they had already been doing this. So I missed an opportunity to leak stuff.
Yeah, a lot of times leaks happen just because people are not doing their due diligence. And yeah, the line between like malicious hacking and just poking around for a scoop, where's that line? Who knows?
Yeah.
But,
I mean, I understand when like an employee leak happens in the game industry, because a lot of the times that's a company like Nintendo that has issues with PR, and sometimes people decide to, some leaks are planned, right?
Yes.
But people just occasionally take it upon themselves to say, hey, nobody's going to believe this Mario Rabbids thing is real. I'm going to put it out here now.
I mean, they're just, again, 1 day before. I don't even think it was full 24 hours.
Yeah.
Like, it was like 1 day before. What does anybody get to gain from this?
yeah, I guess, yeah, the more you frame it that way, it probably was someone who like found a image hosted somewhere and like, was able to get the scoop, and because it didn't seem like no one's claiming credit for it or anything, so it's not trying to gain fame.
Maybe they're claiming credit, but it's in Chinese, so we don't know.
True. But I mean, we talked about the announcement that we're trepidatiously excited about, but there's another one that I think is much more uniformly positive.
I wanted to be more upset about the Zero 2 movie at first, but first of all, after everything else going on, it's kind of hard to be upset about this anymore. it put things in perspective to me. The worst thing I have to worry about is like something to do with fiction. That kind of puts things in perspective.
Oh, to be back in the days when we were only worrying about characters being out of character.
Yeah, but actually, what kind of made me feel a little better actually was yesterday they announced the teaser website for it. It is not under the same top level domain as Kizuna, which means that they're not really billing it as like just a straightforward we're continuing the same story what comes after, but rather more like it's in the same universe, but it's about the 02 cast this time. So I kind of appreciated that because I don't want them to like overstretch themselves trying to drag out the same kind of narrative story. If it's like a side story with the same characters, I'm kind of more okay with that. And also, the part that really kind of made me feel a lot better is if you have followed anything the director, who's also the director of Kizuna, has said, he really likes 02 a lot, and he especially likes its first movie, Hurricane Touchdown. And so whenever like people are like about to handle anything 02 related, I always get really antsy because there's like a lot of nuance in it and a lot of things that are really hard to get. And I always wonder, like, do you really know the 02 kids or do you just know them? And so the good thing is, first of all, I'm sure, I don't know if producer Seki is on this one, but if she is not, I'm pretty sure they still learned a lot about the 02 kids from her on the last movie. So I'm pretty sure they know like how to get all the right nuances correctly. But also, I feel like if you understood Hurricane Touchdown, which is probably one of the most obtuse movies in this franchise, you can probably understand 02.
Walrus rights. Walrus rights.
Really?
We have to go back to the summer memory.
Yeah.
I have my Crest of Miracles mask ready for this.
Yeah. So I mean, I was initially kind of like miffed about it, but then I kind of warmed up because I'm not gonna say I'm completely on board because I still want to hear more about what the premise is, and I also am a little like, oh my god, you actually announced this without getting all the voice actors on board first.
Oh.
But kind of tentatively intrigued by it, and it doesn't seem like it's bound to be a disaster at the very least. So if you can pull off that much, I'll be okay.
I'm trying to remember the interview that about Kizuna that was talking about how the 02 kids weren't originally involved in Kizuna, but they decided to add them in kind of like after the original scenario was written.
I think it was what I actually got the impression was it was kind of very vaguely written. My impression was they probably intended to have them in the movie for obvious reasons, but the thing was they didn't intend them to play a big role in the plot. Because if you actually watch them in the movie, they don't actually do anything that advances the plot very much. They just kind of goof around and do like funny things to lighten up the mood. So I think they intended to have them in like from the marketing and inclusion perspective, but I think like they wanted to make sure that they're not going to like the plot is not going to revolve around them. And this is very difficult to describe to someone who doesn't like have like the ridiculously stupid amount of attachment to 02 that I have. But I think it's better that way because there's a general like sentiment that you don't want them to suffer too much. So I think it's okay if they're happy. I guess that's how I put it. And I think the Kizuna staff understands this too because they were constantly like talking about like they're positive, they're meant to be funny, and so I think they got that. I actually read a comment from the producer. Not a lot of people know about this, I think, because it only showed up on like one really obscure movie coverage site. But the producer, he is the same producer as Kizuna, it's Kinoshita Yosuke. He said two things. He said Daisuke's group has a different charm from Taichi's group, which is true. And he said it's specifically because we're in the current times we are in right now that we wanted to make this movie. So you understand that implication. If you know what 02 was about and you watch it to the end, you understand that the importance of the story was about mutual support, positivity, and being forward. So understanding that, especially because Kizuna came out right when the pandemic hit, and especially because we learned actually they have barely started production on the 02 movie, I think they definitely took and kind of like actually watched fan base reaction, especially with the new website, and like kind of gauged how people felt about it, what they wanted, what they didn't want it, and actually took like the pandemic conditions into account and seemed to be making this a response. And although again I'm a little iffy about the fact that they didn't get all the voice actors on board first, but I'm kind of thinking like if that's how you want to do it, I cannot be too upset about it. Like I guess the way I would put it is like I'm mixed feelings between one, do I really need this? But on the other hand, it's like, but I'm glad you're doing it this tastefully if you have to do it, I guess is how I put it.
Yeah, I think like there are a lot of angles of it that I am really impressed by, that like I guess there are a lot of safer things they could have done, and I'm excited to see them doing it this way. Like the fact that they're leading with this premise.
I appreciate the fact that they gave us a concrete premise from
Mhm.
day one, and also that it seems to be very distinct from what Kizuna's was. Like, and not just
Yeah.
we're just continuing the story. So I appreciate that. So I'm kind of like, okay, prove yourself to me, and
Yeah.
I'll take it. That's all.
And Toya has no thoughts about 02.
I have all of the thoughts about 02 all of the time. I am just trying to restrain myself and sort through ones that are actually relevant. I think that we should all meet up in a theater and see it together, but like social distancing, so 6 feet apart, and wearing matching crest masks.
I mean, I also do wonder how this is going to impact people's view of 02, because as I have mentioned to ad nauseum multiple times on this podcast, 02 in Japanese is very different from 02 in English. And I have actually heard people say that Kizuna's Daisuke is unusually nice. I just want you to know he's exactly the same as he was in the Japanese version of 02. So I really wonder how this is going to be taken, because there are certain things that got lost in translation, and especially if he brings Hurricane Touchdown into this, which is one of the most altered movies out of the three that they did Digimon the movie, to the point where Wallace's characterization is literally the opposite in Japanese.
The whole crying scene.
Well, okay, there's the crying scene, but also in Digimon the movie, because they wanted to play up Davis being an idiot, Willis is like the more sensible one, and Davis is the one screwing around. If you watch the original Japanese version of Hurricane Touchdown, Daisuke is the one asking all the correct questions, and Wallace is like, I don't know, I'm just going off on a journey being an adult. This is none of your business. And then he calls him mom. Like, the point is that Wallace just has this weird, like, twisted personality and, like, flirts with girls and does all this weird things because he thinks he's an adult. And, like, Daisuke's just like, dude. Like, like, the Boketsukomi dynamic is completely swapped in Japanese versus English. So there's that, too.
I will say that after this whole season, which we are still 7 episodes from the end of.
Are we?
We're on 59. I'm referring to the 66 episode thing again.
I don't even know, man.
I'm very hesitant about any like franchise revisiting. I know it's inevitable now with what this brand has become, that like we are riding the nostalgia train all the way through.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that Ghost Game is not that.
I would probably be more concerned about the 02 movie if they did not confirm it was the same staff as Kizuna.
Yeah, the Kizuna staff did a very good job.
Yeah, I do not trust these kids with anybody. So I think they proved themselves in the last movie.
The Kizuna staff personally attacked us for
Well,
trying to be children forever.
They also had that drama CD, which was like had like this. They got like all these really narrowly specific things that like 02 fans know about these kids that like most people don't. So I'm kind of relieved. Also, Yamatoya, the writer, it may not have seemed that way in Kizuna, but his known specialty is actually comedy. So I'm looking forward to that too.
I mean, I went into Kizuna basically having no expectations because of Try, and now I'm kind of worried that like now because I enjoy Kizuna so much, I'm going into this with a lot of expectations, and I wish I could just have that blank slate again and be like, it's probably going to be crap. But
I will say. It's not that I don't have expectations, but actually, I feel like this is actually around the same expectations I had of Kizuna, which is what I said is just give me a decent movie. I'm not asking you to blow my mind. I'm not asking you to like make like the single best thing in the world, but like entertain me for 95 minutes. And if you can entertain me for 95 minutes, I'll accept that, Because like, I'm not expecting this to top 02, because I love that series, but it was a whole 50 episode series and it's a different thing in general. And, I'm not expecting it to somehow compete with it. I'm not expecting it to compete with it in general. Like, just entertain me for 95 minutes. Don't screw up these kids. And if you can accomplish that, bare minimum, done. You know what? Cool. If it's not great, like it's just strictly speaking from like an execution perspective, then too bad. But it's not the end of the world. And again, after everything that happened today, putting things in perspective, slightly lackluster fiction is like not the worst thing I have to worry about.
Yeah. I kind of wonder, and I'm just putting this out there as a time capsule for 3 years from now when the movie actually comes out. But the little shovel and dead plant in the bottom right of the key visual, I'm really curious about those.
Yeah.
That's a strange detail.
We'll see.
Well,
now we have to actually talk about the episode.
Well, whatever we can remember of it at this point after all this.
Yeah, I mean, usually I am focused on keeping episodes short and moving along, but like this is all really important stuff that I wanted to cover and wanted that to be the focus of the episode. So I guess we'll now pivot over. Let's get trapped inside a Waymon and talk about this week's Adventure 2020 episode, episode 59, Bolt Hiraku Kabatariman, which I know that's how it's always been spelled, but like just put the S so at least it's Heracles. Like,
well, but saying this in Mora, that S actually makes it that much harder. So
Heracles Kabuterimon.
Kuresu Kabuteri. Yeah, that's one more Mora.
There was a time on Tamer Union where like Wikimon's spelling of that was changing a lot. Like it would be K one day on the in the middle and then C on another, and I would just go with whatever it was that day.
I just don't like when the way the official subtitles like don't capitalize the K or put a space, so it's like Herakle.
I am a programmer, and therefore I support camel case. I'm not actually a programmer. I just know a little bit of how to do it.
I programmed a video game and I do not support camel case.
Well, this is normally where I have funny alternate titles, and I got nothing because this day destroyed me.
It's just too much to think about this day.
This week on Digimon Adventure : 2020 square bracket The Adventure of Taichi.
Stuff happened.
You actually read that out loud. But I mean, okay, I'll say this again. I think if anybody remembers my last episode, I said that Koshiro seemed to be treated the kindest in this series. So I will double down on that.
Yeah, I think that this was a pretty great Koshiro episode.
I barely remember half the riddles and why the solutions were what they were.
It was difficult to pay attention when, like, every 5 seconds I was thinking about, what if Konaka believes in Japanese Jewish common ancestry theory? But it was cute. Like, Koshiro has a promising future as a YouTuber. He's got Sony Vegas open at one point, just dragging the video flame element over the footage of Waymon.
Well, I will say, I don't remember if I've brought this up on the podcast before, but one of my biggest pet peeves is when they take the crest of knowledge. I know they didn't bring it up still, but when they take the crest of knowledge, when people say it means being good at computers, this is the number one thing that like bothers the hell out of me. Because last time I checked, being good at computers does not mean you're a good person, and I think we know that very well. But what Koshiro is, what knowledge is about is it's actually closer to the D&D wisdom stat, which is like understanding knowledge, knowing what to do with it, having the humility to understand that you need more knowledge, which was very important in the original adventure because it's actually the real meaning was curiosity. And then in 02, where the meaning was also curiosity because it was Iori having the humility to understand that he didn't know everything about human nature. So the question is, what is it in this series? And like, I'm not sure if, there's only one definition for every crest, but I appreciate that, again, they didn't make it into just because Koshiro knows how to bang on the computer, therefore he's smart and therefore he earned the crest of knowledge. But no, it is about actually talking about a little more in depth.
And he ultimately secures his win by outsmarting his opponent, which, okay, they understood what they were doing. He lures him out.
Yeah, so I do think the win over Nanamon, I agree, is a good execute. Like he outsmarts Nanamon. That's nice. I did realize when I like rewatched it that like it's pretty. I mean, all of the riddles are contrived as riddles. I guess lots of riddles are contrived. That's just how riddles are, I guess.
Yes.
But the fact that it's like, okay, solve these 3 riddles. Okay, now you solve them. Now fight this giant Grand Kuwagumon. And it's like, wait, that's the culmination? And like, so like, it's kind of weird that it's like, oh, the evolution moment that like him activating the crest is just this kind of like, oh, now you're in an arena. Now fight the big bad guy. And it's like, oh, okay. So that had nothing to do with knowledge in that specific moment. But then I guess he did, like he had his little, and Aster, you said that like they don't explicitly call it the crest of knowledge this episode, but like they did have him like say knowledge while like the crest was showing on screen, at least. Like
they used the word.
They were winking as hard as they possibly could.
Yeah, it's definitely coming.
I'm so curious like what this is like to experience without actually knowing the crest names.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this one is very easy to tell.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, because he says it's the power of his friends that lets him, like focus on or lets his knowledge shine. So it's possible someone takes away from that his attribute is friendship, maybe.
Maybe they'll explain it later.
Yeah, I think I don't know. Do they have to? It's so nostalgic to look back on 2 days ago when I thought the biggest controversy in the Digimon fandom was that this episode did not mention Koshiro's adopted parents.
Okay, so that we got a lot of questions about this, and I'm not sure if we're gonna have time to go through all the questions in detail at this point. But we got a lot of questions, or I noticed we got questions about the adopted parents, and I just need to remind people we don't actually know if that's the case.
Yeah,
we only know he has something about his family, but just to the point he didn't want to bring it up.
Yeah.
And that's all. Like, you're assuming he's adopted because of the original series, but we've already proven that, like, I mean, Mimi's family background does not even remotely resemble hers in Adventure.
Yeah. And I went back and found I think the one sign that people are hanging on to is a line from, I think it's like episode 19 or 20, when he's meeting up with Sora, and Sora mentions that she got chided by her mom, and then asks Koshiro, and Koshiro is just like, well, my family, ... And that could mean that his parents are very strict. It could mean his parents are off in America. It could mean so many things.
He's just too shy to talk about his family. I don't know.
um,
It doesn't mean anything. So I don't assume,
yeah,
Like I said, Mimi is from a completely different family background from what she had in Adventure. So do not assume that like everything applies.
yeah. I think also like, okay, I think there are two things that are simultaneously true. That like that definitely was a tease, and it'll be very frustrating if they never pay that off by the end of the series.
Yeah. But it may not be the same thing.
Right. So
Very
like,
important.
I think it being as big of a well, I don't want to say like his adoptive backstory was a bombshell in the original series, but it was like something that weighed on his mind so heavily.
Yes. They brought it up very, very early in the series. So.
And like I think that only worked so well because they had the time and interest in showing the relations with the parents in the real world to have him actually have a payoff of that moment with his parents. And this clearly is not that type of show. So
that payoff moment also happened like barely over the halfway point. Like Koshiro's character arc was very interesting in Adventure in that it actually ended very early.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But yeah, so like I don't think it would even make sense for this show to have not that it doesn't make sense to have that same family backstory, but like it doesn't make sense for it to be the kind of thing that weighs on his mind so heavily that we need like a big cathartic moment with them, because I don't think we're gonna get that time with these parents. Like it's not the type of show it's been clear that way for a while. So
yeah.
So I guess I sympathize with people being frustrated that they have given us this tease about his family backstory and not followed up on it. I just want to remind people that this is the same franchise that in Atmon introduced a mysterious what are they called? Apply driver? A mysterious shadowy Apply driver that was never
and didn't actually show who it was.
Yeah.
Although I did actually just personally apply the manga's explanation and said it was probably early cameo of Night or something. But
yeah. But I think wasn't there an interview where like they mentioned like, oh yeah, we kind of forgot about that, and maybe it was a tweet or something.
I don't remember, but yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
So,
not everything was paid off in Adventure either. I remind you that.
Yeah.
Actually, not everything was paid off in it. There were things that were set up in Adventure and made it all the way past 02 and didn't get set up. Didn't get resolved. And there were things that were set up in Adventure and took until 02 to get resolved. So there's a lot of that too.
Yeah. So I think it's important to keep in perspective that like it was a line like 40 episodes ago. Like it I don't think it makes sense to come with all this baggage from the original show, but like I think we have to treat this show for what it is on its own terms. But let's get into some server reviews.
Yay!
All right, so Gigajimon22 said Izzy's non-existent parents. ...
At Joseph Snosa, Mario saves Peach.
At Andy Lucas OE, Koshiro best character.
At Board Individual, give us Taichi Datamon.
At Megatron22, Datamon's a girl.
At Dak and Jackster, riddle me this, Batman.
Yeah, so that's what we need, Toya's voice acting. CC Takao said, no Koshiro's family.
At PDX Anime, who remembers Waybot?
At NNN Podcast, Taichi in distress.
Is that a reference to something?
I think that's just literally Taichi in distress.
Okay.
No, Taichi's in distress.
Padaman Fan 1991, Cyber Crystal Maze.
At Austin LC23, Koshiro best boy.
I really liked the little please wait a moment screen that Koshiro inserted into Datamon's screen. Like just it had Pixel Tentomon in the corner and then Tentomon himself bowing.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, he's becoming a motion graphics editor. I need to find that. Send me that screenshot. But yeah, let's get into some listener comments and questions. Apologies, we're not going to read all of these on air just because we,
spent so much time.
Yeah, the meat of the discussion wasn't about the episode, but PDX Anime said, while maybe one of the more interesting and unique ways of expressing the crest attribute, did anyone feel the evolution sequence was really underwhelming animation-wise? Like it just felt bland. And
I'm not an animation expert, to be honest, so this is not really my forte.
You don't need to be an expert.
I liked this evolution sequence, actually, even though it didn't have all of the fun glowy effects that a lot of them do. I liked the way that they portrayed Heracles Kabuterimon's like shell fitting over the body of Adler.
Is that how you pronounce it? Heracles Kabuterimon?
I think so.
Well, it's from the Heracles.
Yeah, it's from Greek.
Yeah, I always say like Heracle, which I guess is not how you would pronounce Heracles, so that makes sense.
Well, Herakure.
I thought it was a little silly that like he just like summons gauntlets and they just come on his body and then that's it. But
it is derived from Heracles, but
look, this franchise has a known track record of stealing stealing transcriptions from Shin Megami Tensei. Okay, so like this is actually on record.
That's true.
Yeah, so yeah, it's supposed to be Herakurasu, but it became Herakuru da.
Don't think about it too hard.
Yeah. Anyway, so Gigajimon22 asked about. I mean, I think we already brought up a lot of the talk about Izzy's home situation.
Yeah.
But one thing they mentioned is the idea that like is it the thing happening where because there's a new season coming, the production crew are more focused on what's starting next rather than ending the season. They might have moved on, and I don't know if that's.
No, I think it's just not their priority in general.
They don't care.
I mean, like, is that a trend that you can even find in old Digimon seasons when there was a lot of shared staff between the seasons?
That's more of an animation thing, I think, not so much. And it's only noticeable in like the last episode because usually the last episode's animation is not great because the next
End of
one's
season
first
curse.
episode needs to be good. But that's like literally the only thing.
Yeah, remember, if we have great animation in the last episode of this series, maybe they'll cancel Ghost Game. I don't know. Ooh.
Well, I mean, like if you look at seasons 1 through 3 that all had a season airing after them, I don't think you look at the like final episodes of those seasons and are like, oh, well, they had bad episodes at the end. Like,
well, I do now. the animation, I mean.
I mean in terms of writing.
The animation for all three of them, like the last episode, is like, wow.
Yeah, the Tamers right in the final episode.
Tamers got the worst.
Like Dukemon Crimson mode, just he looks like a cardboard cutout hovering across the screen, and not even a good cardboard cutout, like a low resolution one.
You better thank the adventure finale for being so emotional, because actually the last like minute is just a bus zooming out with the same looping animation over and over. Better thank Butterfly for holding that episode down so well, man.
I know why the 02 finale is the way it is now. I still don't like it.
You mean the last episode?
Yeah, of 02.
Oh, yeah.
I don't like the last 3 episodes. I've ranted to you about this before.
Context, I explained to Touya the entire thematic meaning of the final finale, so like he understands, but he also still
you're
doesn't.
right.
But that's not a topic for this podcast, so we'll move on. We're not here to talk about 02.
I want to hear that later because I did just watch those episodes. But Andy Lucas Oe said, we haven't seen the human world in so long. Is this because the writers have decided to scale down the stakes for the end of the season, or do you think they'll do a shock reveal where the whole world has been put in a worse state without the characters knowing for quite some time? And I hadn't entertained that idea until I read this comment, and now I'm scared that's what they're going to do.
Well, personally, I just think like we're all relying on the fact that like Adventure had like a whole quarter of the series in the real world, but the thing is, there are series we've had where the entire thing is isekai, which is Crosswords and Frontier. Like,
yeah, it's not necessarily bad if it's all in the digital world, but I'm worried that like Koshiro was keeping up to date with the real world for so long, and we haven't heard why he isn't recently, and so he hasn't said everything's okay, and I'm worried that he's going to be like, oops, I just forgot to check in. Everything's falling apart.
They will get out of the digital world after they save it and back into the human world, and then discover that the human world they grew up in was actually the digital world all along, and they were just inside a deeper part of it during the whole digital world portion, and there's no resolution. That was my theory about Try, actually, that they would find out that the real world, this was based on back when we only had the first movie. You could see a map at one point that looked vaguely like the map of the digital world from from the first season, Digimon Adventure, and I was like, what if the whole city is actually inside the digital world and the characters aren't aware of this?
Well, it turns out that implies that they were actually paying attention to details, so...
Yeah.
Do you know how many animation errors are in that series?
The creator interviews are not
Oh my
great.
god.
I'll say that much.
Yeah. Anyway, so we'll see. That's all I'll say.
I think we got a question from Dak and Jax asking what we expect out of Ghost Game tonally, structurally, thematically, but I think we talked about the like our general feelings of the series, but I don't think we really touched on that. I'm worried that it's going to be, well, I don't want to say worried. This is also imagining it in a Konaka-less world right now. But like I kind of am scared of the kind of as much as I liked Atmon, I feel like it was kind of off-puttingly more childish vibe. I don't know, like part of it is that it also wasn't being simulcast as it was coming out, but I feel like it was not a lot of people's cup of tea, and I'm worried this one also feels a little bit like more child-oriented.
I think it was just more that the writer said that he wanted to make sure that everything was actually understandable, especially because there were so many difficult topics in the series. So he said that he wanted to make like absolute sure that there was not like ambiguity, because he said like if you lose the audience for a certain amount of time, you just lose them for that much. So I think even if it felt like a little overkill, he wanted to be unsubtle.
Atmon felt like it went into deeper topics than this one did, which actually made it feel less childish to me. But at the end of the day, we are watching a show that airs on like Sunday mornings for kids.
Yeah, like what you're saying is totally valid. It's like, but it's hard to describe. It's like the aesthetic, something like, because yeah, in terms of actual meat of what's going on in these episodes, there's very little there in Adventure 2020. I mean, in Natmon there was actual character development.
Please remember, I had an entire rant. If you remember the entire rant I had on this podcast earlier about how Adventure was too subtle for its own good. Like,
Yeah.
there is a problem if you're not communicating everything,
And my other concern with Ghost Game is that it is it seems like it's just the premise of Yokai Watch, which is also a topic close to home for Atmon, being written by the same writer of the Yokai Watch anime.
At this point, I would be okay if he were the writer, though.
Yeah.
I would accept that.
I mean, the difference between the release of Atmon and the release of Ghost Game is that Ghost Game is coming on the heels of kind of a very boring season of Digimon Adventure getting rehashed again.
But it is also coming on the heels of a little more confidence in financial success, because Atmon was gambling to all hell and back.
Yeah, we have a card game that did not get discontinued after 3 sets.
Yeah.
We have a card game that is wildly profitable, like number 5 in America.
We have a card game going strong. We have, for as much as you can criticize this season, we have a Digimon anime series that actually makes TV rankings.
Yeah.
Every so often, which is like, I don't think it's ever achieved that since like Sabers.
Maybe not since Frontier.
Yeah, it's been a while. And no, actually, no, first episode of Cross Wars made it.
Oh, good.
First episode, but yeah.
It deserved that. The Digimon card game was number 6 in sales in America, according to Hobby
So
Channel.
it has like a little more grounding to work off of. And like Atmon, part of the reason is like it was so outlandish in so many ways was because it was gambling so much. It was like it had to try like being in your face because it needed to make a statement and to attract attention. This one doesn't really have to do that because it's coming on the heels of a little more stability.
Yeah, I guess like the other thing that concerns me is that Atmon was such a like attempt to not like pivot the franchise, but like make a branch that unfortunately like kind of that branch of the tree just kind of ended there, and like hasn't really been brought back into the franchise since. And I'm worried that like tonally this will be kind of similar, but it doesn't seem like they're actually, have they been explicit? These are Digimon. Like they're not some like Ghostmon or anything. Like they're.
Well, I mean, they're probably Digimon, but I'm not gonna say they're not. But I mean, I do think I wouldn't really be averse to like having something tonally close to Atmon, but like not as off-putting in like how radically different it was from the original franchise. Like, yeah. I mean, like if you want to, like, I guess specifically speaking, how like Atmon had a very good balance of being straightforward and easy to understand, but actually going into some pretty intimate topics. So I really like that balance. So.
One thing I do like from this reveal is that the core cast is just 3 characters.
Yeah.
Because this ensemble cast crap, this worked for us in 1999. It has not been working for us in 2020. Like, I'm sorry, there have been high points and low points on this show, as your charts have demonstrated. But the splitting up of the cast and the need to include Taichi and everything has been very rough on the writing of this series.
I think 3 is a nice number.
Having 3 means that we can have something structurally more like Tamers or Cross Wars, where you've got those 3 core characters, and then there's focus episodes where you get more inside their head and who they are. Like even Cross Wars I felt like she was underused, especially in the second half of the series where she basically disappeared. But Akari had the episode where she wanted to return to the real world and Lilithmon was like tempting her, and that was the same, I think it was a 2-parter where Daipenmon attacked with the Bagra army, and like that one gave us a clearer insight to who she is. There was no time for anything like that in this show's 59 episode run so far.
3 actually had a surprise, actually shows up quite a bit in Digimon. Tamers, of course, is the most famous one, but Sabers started off this way as well, and also, as you said, Cross Wars worked on this. And actually, when you think about it, Atmon did too. Because Day was like kind of like on and off like rival character for a while. So technically speaking, Atmon does actually count as a trio series, even though it doesn't really look that way because Day is like technically still prominent. But I think it's a good number to work with because like Adventure and 02 were able to exceed that number, and Frontier too. Because they were extremely big on the singular focus episode, and even then, did Frontier actually pulled off the even character representation. That's a big question. but Adventure in Zero Two did a very good job with this, specifically because they were so character biased that like they could get away with it. But I think having a smaller cast is definitely a very big focus. Actually, one of the criticisms of Tamers is actually that it started kind of getting messier when they introduced too many characters near the end.
Yeah. I actually like the first gosh, would it be half? I'm not even remembering the episode numbers anymore. The real world arc of Tamers, I feel, is much stronger than the D Reaper part, which is not something. The whole digital world portion drags for me very badly. The episodes bleed together a lot.
Not to bring up Konaka in a completely different context, but he completely admitted outright that he didn't even really want to write the digital world, and it kind of shows.
Right, yeah.
So.
But like everybody loves that episode with Ruki and Ice Devimon. That couldn't be possible without the 3 character structure.
Right. Like, I think it's a good number to work with in general. And of course, there's a very likelihood we'll have a 4th or a 5th character come in later.
What? Oh, the rival unexpectedly joined the main cast? Shock and awe.
I think one thing we also haven't talked about is like how non-standard the Digimon partner designs are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was actually, because I was personally on the side of, I'm not sure if this is real or not, back when like it was leaked. Looking at the main one, Gamamon, his name is, I was kind of surprised that they picked a Digimon with the predominant color white as a...
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I realized, I found his design since I first saw it off-putting, and I realized, like, the actual line art is incredibly cute, but the white is what I find so strange.
Because that's not something you would have an easy time marketing, I feel like.
I like the scarf.
Scarf's cute.
I think that one's my favorite of the 3.
It's funny because everyone was talking about no goggles, but I was the one sitting here going like, his name doesn't start with Da or Da on the first one.
Do you think maybe it's going to be...
Sin?
Have they revealed the kanji spelling?
What? It's Hito.
Right, but like, could it be written with a character that could also be read with a Ta or Da?
I don't know. I mean...
As a stretch, but like...
Yeah.
No gods, no masters.
That's also not a common thing. Although technically speaking, Daisuke is actually the only Da, but like everybody counts as Ta or Da specifically because they don't want to exclude him.
I mean, not to stoke the fires further, but like if Konaka was writing this, would he have the main character respect tradition or go against it at this point?
Yeah, that's the part that like concerns me, because the franchise itself has a vested interest in kind of breaking tradition a little bit because of all the problems that have been causing from feeding people too much with the tradition. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, a lot of these things are kind of the things he really liked doing back then, with the trio cast and an unconventional protagonist. God, I don't want to get conspiracy theorist about a conspiracy theorist. But yeah, right now all the signs are not looking good, so I'm just like, that's why like it's very difficult to talk about this series, because like I have to mentally prepare myself for the possibility that I may not be able to allow myself to get emotionally attached to it.
Yeah. Well, I guess on that note, NNN Podcast asked, provided the leaks are true and Ghost Gamer exists, which, yeah, we know that they now are true and exist, and will you still be doing a watch-along podcast? I feel like your show really increases my enjoyment of the current season. First of all, thank you for that comment. I appreciate hearing that. But, I mean, yeah, the big elephant in the room is obviously I would need time to process what because I thought a lot about Ghost Gamer, but I haven't thought a lot about like what it would mean if he's involved, and I mean what happens between now and then in terms of his interaction with the fandom. I think it's, easy to say that if he's involved, it's a much more complicated picture that, like not committing to anything anyway, but even less committing if he's involved. But assuming he's not involved, I don't know. Like, I think as much as Adventure 2020 has been kind of like disappointing on a lot of different fronts, I've really appreciated how much it is appealing to a different target demographic than a lot of Digimon seasons have recently. Like the fact that I've been able to get on a bunch of different guests, I feel like isn't true for something like Atmon. I don't think will be true for Ghost Gamer. I think there'll be a lot of people who are interested in the beginning of it, but like Adventure has this appeal to a lot of people that other seasons don't, other new seasons don't, unfortunately. So I think the main thing is that, and also I realized recently that like getting different guests each week is I can, like when I sit down and plan like how much time I have for the week, it's like, oh, that doesn't take time to find guests, but like it is mentally draining, and I'm I'm not exhausted by doing the podcast, but I am kind of exhausted of getting different guests each week. So,
Well, I mean, technically speaking, we could figure out a way for Jeff to drag me in every week. But do you want to put up with me every week? I don't think you do.
Jeff, if you decide to do Ghost Game,
And Konaka's not on it.
if you decide to do Ghost Game, and you have me on for the first episode, I will stick with it as long as you want until I fall off the wagon and miss a week. And then fall behind like I did on this series and end up marathoning episodes the day that I have to watch them, or the day that I have to talk about them.
So yeah, assuming that we're all moral questions are not an object, Toya and I will at least commit to, if Jeff also decides to go through with it, because there's other things besides just the guest issue, I'm sure, because this is hard work, and so, but Toya and I will commit. There's that.
If he is the writer and you decide to do the show anyway,
No, I'm not gonna. If he's a writer, I'm out.
You won't.
I'm out.
I might go on to be as strict as I have ever been.
And rip it apart every episode.
Yes.
Yeah.
I suffered through like 30 episodes of the Shadowverse anime. I thought that was the worst anime I would ever see.
It's difficult because it's the question of, do you want to give that kind of thing more of a platform? When he outright said that he intends to channel stuff there as fiction, but then the question becomes, you kind of do need somebody out there to kind of like rip it apart.
Yeah,
it's a very difficult situation.
Oh, and I guess the other like elephant in the room is that, like, I try to keep everything in this podcast above board. So if it's not simulcast, then that's, I don't feel comfortable covering it.
Yeah, we don't actually know if they're going to simulcast it. I mean, everything's pointing towards them probably being interested in doing it, but because they're branching out internationally now.
But yeah, I mean, if you guys are down, I think that would be great.
I will say, yeah, if it is him, I'm out. So
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you'll be stuck with Toya.
I understand.
Yeah, I just don't want to emotionally think about it.
Yeah. So, well, there's a lot to see. Yeah, I'm scared. So yeah, that's open-ended, and yeah, it also depends, like, if the show looks appealing, and there's so many other factors. But I also was like, I don't know, like, I was in the back of my head excited for the idea of, like, if Adventure 2020 ended and there was a break, getting to somehow cover Cross Wars and Atmon or something. So depending on how interesting or exciting this new show is, like, there's the possibility of, like, doing it less than weekly to also do other coverage or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Lots of things up in the air.
If Gigi is boring, we will duct tape you into a chair and make you watch Atmon with us.
I still want to support Jeff and whatever he wants to do, whether it's a weekly podcast or whatever he wants. I'm trying to hint at things that I'm not supposed to say, but whatever Jeff decides to do. And so, unfortunately, you guys are probably going to be stuck with me for a lot longer. So I'm really sorry about that.
I don't think you should apologize. But all right, I guess to close out the thing that we're, like, supposed to kind of be here for, I guess, this Koshiro episode of Adventure 2020. I guess first off, do we have any MVP candidates?
Koshiro. He worked hard.
Wait, oh my gosh, we didn't even talk about this. The Soundbirdmon. They actually tied back to the earlier plot. That was great. I love continuity.
I'm gonna at the moment when Taichi disappears and Agumon's just running around like a chicken without a head, I love that. So I'm gonna get to Agumon. Okay, but yeah, ratings for this episode.
It's a 4.
I'm going to give it a 4, and if you think that's too generous, please understand that I've been dealing with a lot, so I'd like to appreciate some positivity in my life.
Yeah, I'm gonna, obviously affected by my emotional state, I'm gonna give it a 3 just because it, like, I feel like it bounced off me and it just, like, slid right off. But that might also be because of what's going on in this fandom.
There's always something. You had me on for an actually pretty good episode, and then this.
Well, next week is about Joe and Vikemon and Olegmon, and there's lots of snow, and maybe no Taichi?
No, don't. No, he's gonna show up somehow.
I doubt it. Come on. There's a pattern, man.
They
might make it hard to find him. Like, it might be a Where's Waldo situation. Spot the Taichi in the episode.
See, I would welcome that if Taichi was, like, in the background of our episode. Well, yeah, I don't know. I'm trepidatiously excited because Joe Focus episodes have been pretty good aside from that one that you guys were last on for.
I blocked it out. I gotta check. Oh man, that episode had really bad ratings. Yeah, people agree with me.
Yeah. So, but Legmon's nice. Vikemon's nice. Viking battle.
Capo.
Capo, viva Legna. I don't even know how to pronounce it anymore.
Olegna.
I haven't seen Cross Wars since 2000.
Let's fix that.
13, I think
Digimon
so.
Adventure 2020 is dropped. We're watching Cross Wars right now.
Let's watch all of Cross Wars before episode 60 next week.
It can be done. I've done it before. Do you want to suffer?
Did you guys want to do recommendations?
I'm so tired. I recommend everyone. I recommend everyone take care of themselves and do their best. That's my recommendation.
I recommend Cardfight Vanguard Overdress, which is possibly the best trading card game I have ever played. And I can't believe I'm saying that, but okay, Jeff, we've been talking Digimon card prices, like cards that are $150 or more. I built a competitive Vanguard deck for $35.
Yeah, that's the context. People who don't follow Touya on Twitter, we've lost him. He's abandoned Digimon.
I've not abandoned Digimon.
I'm jealous hearing that. I mean, I'm at the phase where I've bought Digimon boxes, and now I'm like, okay, so I have this like base set of cards. Now how much do I invest? Do I invest like an extra $300 for one deck?
No, I think you should cash out. I think this is not financial advice. I am just an ape on the internet spewing stuff. But I think that Digimon is in a speculative bubble right now, and it has been basically since launch, because there's no way you can have sealed product at consistently 150 up to 300% MSRP for months on end. That's not sustainable. These card prices are crazy, and I think it's all going to crash at some point.
I mean, I think also the angle that I find concerning is that like it'd be one thing if I could just like buy a couple boxes and then like have a deck that's limited by like, okay, I can only have one or two of these super rare or secret rare cards. But like the YouTube economy and culture now is like everyone's following these creators who have like full play sets of these super rare and secret rare cards, and it's like, well, you want to emulate them, and it's like, I mean, it feels like you're not really playing right if you're not emulating them, and it's like also the local community that I've joined, my area is like full of people who are buying full cases and a
They're
half,
nuts.
2 cases just for themselves and not splitting them, and it's like that's like $1,000+ per set every 2 months, and it's like and that's not even with the inflated prices. That's like before inflated prices, and so it's scary.
As a lifelong trading card player, this is crazy. All right, like in Vanguard, people are literally building everything. This has never happened in the game before, because everything is so cheap that people are just building every deck for the price of like one Digimon deck. The tournament play is amazing. Like, this is the most skill-based the game has ever been. It's deep. Over triggers suck, but you'll find out what those are if you actually pick up Vanguard. And they always feel bad when your opponent gets them, and they always feel bad when you get them.
I only play Shadowverse, so I have nothing to say here.
I will convert you. I will show up at your house.
Let's convert Touya to Shadowverse.
We tried, it didn't work.
I've already played. I was the one that got Aster into Shadowverse. However, I am probably going to get Champions Battle and start streaming it at some point, because I like to suffer.
But I think in terms of things that we're recommending, do we have any resources we can point people towards to, I guess, fact check things?
I was given kind of a lot of redirects to Rational Wiki, and I'm kind of on the fence about that, because I kind of don't like how crude they are with like so many things, crude and insulting and like all that. But they do a really good job. And also personally, I am a little iffy about how they treat anything that's not Western, because cough, Chinese medicine cough. But I definitely do appreciate the fact that they cover very comprehensively a lot of like conspiracy theories and debunk them very thoroughly with sources, which is very nice. There's I might link this to Jeff later, but I have links, so I'll give it to him. But yeah, there's like the conspiracy theory handbook and other things. But yeah, it's a difficult topic, and it is. I do have to, let you guys know that like a lot of things that seem innocuous, or if you just want to like entertain for a second, maybe it's just a borderline case. This is a slippery slope. You can spot patterns like this. Is a very specific known pattern that a lot of people have seen many times before. It's a rabbit hole, and once someone goes far down enough, it's very difficult, near impossible to get them out. So the reason why people are freaking out is not just because it's not an overreaction. It's, we have seen this exact specific behavior pattern before, and it's scary because we've seen this before. It's known, and it's awful. So I want people to know that.
Yeah.
I would like to recommend Occam's Razor.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You can't see the obvious path when you're clouded by various things. But yeah, I think things like media bias fact checks, Snopes, there are, well, we'll have links to those. And if you see a source that you're like, was this suppressed because it was just telling so much truth or because it's spreading misinformation, you like do a little bit of research and see. I find it really valuable to like see what type of people are defending it and what type of people are decrying it. And it's like, usually you can kind of see a pattern that like, if the worst people on the internet are the ones heralding this, then like that's probably a bad sign. If the
like when people were saying like, oh, maybe it's just he just doesn't understand or he hasn't gotten in that deep, the alt-right YouTuber he recommended for being a so-called sensible journalist has an entire page on him in Rational Wiki detailing exactly how bad this goes.
Well, I think that brings us to the end of the show. This episode of Petages was brought to you by not having any fun little fake sponsor for this episode, but
Our sponsors were cut. Our sponsors were cut to censor our voices.
Oh no, we're being canceled off the internet. But last week's Digiprompt was, what Digimon would you want to see as the guardian for Primary Village / a Village of Beginnings, and why? So my favorite response came in from Andy Lucas OE, who said, Marimon, because he's a hard-boiled worker. He'll do a good job. Oh wait, oh no, Marimon, stay away. Boil all the Digi-eggs. This week's Digiprompt is, what Digimon would you want to see trap the kids and then give them a series of riddles? And you can send answers to that or any feedback to podages@gmail.com, to @podages on Twitter, or in the episode comments on podages.com. This was a very heavy episode of topics, but, try to keep things civil, and I hope you appreciate that, we tried to bring a lot of depth and nuance to this. I was scared to record this because it's a lot.
I feel a lot of catharsis being able to get this out, at least, because I want more people to know about the depth of this, and without like simplifying the discussion on social media and all that, because Twitter is only so many characters long per post. I don't like that. So
Twitter is designed to not have intelligent discussion.
So I hope all of you who are listening to Jeff's podcast on whatever your favorite platform is can take it all to heart. And, I'm very relieved that now that this is out, the majority of people I know have been very gracious about it, and everyone understands. And there's been a lot of bad things with like people locking down on it and supporting him harder and all that, but there's also been a lot of good, and that people understand, and there's a little bit of solidarity, and people have been very good about it. I probably sound really emotional right now, but I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah, it's nice in these times to be reminded of how much of the Digimon community is
made up of decent people.
Yeah.
However, if you are one of those that thinks that we are full of it and blowing everything out of proportion, and Konaka is completely in the right here, I don't know why you listened this long.
Yeah, really. I pity Jeff having to edit all this, but
it's okay. I think it was important to talk about all this stuff. So, but yeah, if you want to, join the discussion, check out the show notes to find a link to join our Discord server, and share the podcast with your friends who embody Koshiro's crest of knowledge and don't insist they can no longer trust scientific experts because they've fallen down a YouTube conspiracy rabbit hole.
Really though, crest of knowledge is about admitting that you don't know everything, taking in new information and applying that, not just jumping to the worst conspiracy theory you can find and making assumptions. Okay, this is a very good thing we're doing this with the crest of knowledge episode. Take that to heart.
Yeah. And if this is your first episode of the podcast,
why?
Welcome to this chaotic mess. It's normally not this chaotic, but you can also find us on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever else you find podcasts. So let's go around and share where people can find us on social media. Aster?
I'm Atlas Jill on Twitter, among other places, and yeah, I think this is probably the most political I've ever been in public, but at the same time, you see me talk about trans rights ever so often, so this shouldn't be surprising to you.
Touya?
You can find me on Twitter at Touya, on Pillowfort also at Touya, if I ever get around to using it, and on YouTube at Maniacs Channel,
where he has betrayed Digimon forever.
I have not betrayed. I have another Digimon episode. I have Digimon episodes coming out. All right, they're happening. They're in the cooker. Like, first off, I've got to clear something up with. I've got a Vanguard video to get out, and then I've got to wrap up the stupid Yu-Gi-Oh series. People love that one for some reason, and then it's Digimon time. Okay, it's Digimon time.
Well, and I am definitely Jeff on Twitter, and thank you for listening, I guess. This was a long episode, a hefty episode, but I'll be back next week to talk about episode 60, Digimon Ventures the Glaciers. Bye.
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 And remember, never stop digivolving.